Here we go again. One of the greatest challenges in music journalism is the ability to take your own personal taste out of the critical equation. It's the lack of general understanding regarding how or why music appeals to someone other than ourselves that gives we hipster music critics a bad name. Recently, a dear friend whose taste I respect dismissed Macklemore's Can't Hold Us as a prom song, meaning it a mindless dance number. And while I agree that it is, I argued, it's also as good a prom song as one can make. If productions by will.i.am are the gold standard to which a prom song is held, then not only have those boys met the goal, they've exceeded it. And while I don't change the radio station on Macklemore, I'll never own the heist. I understand why kids love them, but they just don't speak to me. And in order for me to have a lifelong relationship with a record, it absolutely has to speak to me. Personally. Really personally. Because ultimately, my vagina makes my musical decisions. Now, for the anatomically challenged, I don't mean my clit. It's not a decision based solely on what turns me on. In terms the sausage-heavy audience will understand, my vagina is conciliary, my clit is conciliary, my vagina is the godmother. And while my clit's opinion is highly regarded, and on occasion it's gone wild with power, the ultimate say is always in the godmother's hands. She is, after all, the source of life and our woman's intuition. In scenarios where ladies magically move vehicles from atop their injured offspring, I'm certain somehow their vagina is responsible for that mystical heavy lifting. Back in my tweendom, the concierge's first interest in organized crime was piqued by this poster of John Bon Jovi. I'd had musical crushes before, but they existed solely above the waist. The godmother, however, was never fully on board with Mr. Jovi, and by the time we reached New Jersey, fittingly, he had to be whacked, leaving me with a lifelong disdain for earnest pop rock and an embedded affinity for hairy chest. Around the same time those paisley pants graced my wall, an older cousin took time away from misinforming me about cigarettes and tampons to introduce me to Prince Rogers Nelson via a 7-inch extended dance mix of Let's Go Crazy. Its flip side would prove life-altering. Overtly provocative and immaculately produced, Erotic City was one of the very first pieces of music that viscerally affected me to my core, setting off a reaction that's proved an infallible compass to this day. Consequently, the godmother and I are still very fond of Prince. Despite his radically shifting politics and affinity for Jehovah, I have to admit, I'd still let Prince witness to my vagina for an hour or two, and would go so far as to say I'd probably even allow him to drop a watchtower at my back door, if he promised to write a song about it. Unfortunately, my vagina's passions run both ways, and she hates as deeply as she loves. Never has she reacted with such extreme prejudice as upon her first hearing of Modest Mouse. The band's guitar tone made her Sahara arid, like I'd spent an hour squatting over a Dyson hand dryer. And when Isaac Brock's vocals kicked in, she literally clenched and seized, as if she could somehow abort the horrifying sound from my ears. And yes, if you're wondering, it's happening now. As the godmother only controls one biological syndicate, my brain and heart house completely separate criminal enterprises, making for some tricky negotiation. My brain is capable of loving a band like LCD Sound System, an act for whom my vag is merely content. Most likely because Mr. Murphy's precise musical genius is crafted from a very male perspective, one that respects vaginas but doesn't pander to them. His is a career based on vaginal neutrality. And while my sappy emo heart lobbies for the Beatles, the godmother will always and forever choose the Stones, as no band in the history of music has had a longer or more illustrious career of promoting harmonious relations between the clit and the vagina like the Rolling Stones. They deserve a Nobel Prize for pussy-pleasing politics. And no matter how hard my brain rallies against her, or how much she hurts my heart, my vagina will always be pro-Courtney. One of the few musicians capable of uniting all three families is a woman whose vagina plays highly in her musical process, to the extent it makes you appreciate yours all the more if you have one, and envy those who do if you do not. Miss Polly Jean Harvey. Her Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea is the rare musical peace treaty where all parties concerned get everything they ask for. Romantic without gooey sentiment, it's equal parts cerebral and fraught with sexual energy, capturing my exact personal interpretation of how being truly and deeply in love should feel and sound, making for a spectacular mind, body, and spirit musical trifecta. Of course, after hearing all this, it should come as no surprise, my highly opinionated vagina and I don't care at all what you think about our musical taste, just as long as you think we taste great. Thanks, you guys.